Hey there, fellow pattern interrupters. Today's pattern interrupter daily drop. Fresh off the griddle, I I got up at 5 a.m. earlier, in fact, this morning to join the Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi 5 hour presentation. And I've got to say, I was both impressed and appalled. I was impressed because the pitch and the message and the integrity of the presentation was pretty darn good. I was also impressed by the organization. I was impressed by how tactically diplomatic the email outreach has been, too. It's been assertive, but not too cloying. And I was also impressed with how many people joined. I was so impressed that I went into the VIP and threw in $1 US, which went towards feeding somebody in America, which I thought, great. I don't mind parting with $1 to get VIP access. I didn't actually use the VIP access because I felt that most of my questions were answered by the presentations, the speakers. There was some really good stuff. There was some great drops by Dean Graziosi, and they had a number of guest speakers. A gentleman called Trent was very moving and very inspirational. And other speakers included Carrie Green and who was it? Bonnie Christie. Actually, Bonnie's work was pretty interesting to me because she tied in with some of the neurological work that I do myself and the ideas about how we can rewire our brains. I strongly advocate for her. I've looked at her Facebook page. I'm going to chase up on that one and subscribe to her gubbins and her doings, and I'll reach out to her at some stage in the not too distant future. The other work was great. There was a lot of emphasis on you can do this, a lot of emphasis on self-belief, and a lot of emphasis on choose the right time, and the right time is now. Don't hesitate, because hesitation is loss. You want to strike while the iron's hot, and you want to make those positive changes in your life now. Now, I've titled this live stream, Am I Really That Needy? And the reason I've done that is because looking at the demographic and looking at the people, I saw a lot of people who were, I would consider to be very ordinary people. And I don't say that in a disparaging way, but what I mean is that by very ordinary people, how many of those very ordinary people can really expect to bust out and defy the statistical odds, set up a business, and then survive 3 to 5 years? The odds are stacked against. And a lot of the marketing, because it was marketing, a lot of presentations were funneling people emotionally towards the idea of buying the upgrade, which was in the region of around just under 1,000 US. And I was kind of tempted almost just to be able to see what was in there so that I could use it as a resource for myself. But then I thought, well, I can't really afford to part with $1,000. The selling point was that if I had parted with $1,000, there's a high chance that I could have scaled and had my business, my coaching business, up and running and established within 30 days. That was the promise. Or there would be a money back guarantee. So it makes the idea of spending $1,000 on such a venture a no-brainer. However, despite the best efforts of the presenters and the messages from Dean and Tony, I'm afraid I'm just too hard-bitten, cynical, world-weary, jaded, whatever you want to call it. I'm also traditionally too independent. I couldn't bring myself to do the rah, rah, rah thing, and I can't bring myself to do the jumping up and down and waving around, in the intervals and all that kind of stuff. I don't like being I don't like being jiggled. Having said that, that's all part of the territory, isn't it? For example, I'm going to be looking into some of Richmond Dean's work, and there's an element of rah, rah, rah jiggling involved in his presentations. I just find it easier to ignore that kind of thing. Years ago, when I was in adult education, I encountered a word which I've never seen or heard of before or since, which my lecturer, David Honeywell, presented to me, which was didactic learning. And he described it as the process of one educator watching another and drawing influence from what that person is doing. And this is one of the curses of the educator. Whenever you are being educated, you're always analyzing, studying, and evaluating the people who are doing the work. On that basis, I've got to say, Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins are masters. They are the presentation meisters, really. Dean Graziosi's homespun appeal, his blue-collar appeal is just unshakable. And Tony Robbins' drive to the top, his neurological and his NLP drive also is just unassailable. There's no two ways about it. If you look at, if I were to suggest one of the 50 most influential people of the 20th century, I'd have to put Tony Robbins in there. So for me, to tell you the truth, it was worth sitting around for 5 hours simply to watch Tony Robbins live present, even though it's just for 15 minutes, because on a didactic level, there's just so much to learn from watching him. I analyzed and studied how Dean Graziosi works, and I should be doing what Dean Graziosi does, which is use lots of hand gestures, lots of expressions, slight pauses, that kind of stuff. It was great. It was great to watch. I enjoyed it immensely. But I also saw within the audience, sounds snobby, I know, but I didn't really place myself in the same category as the majority of the people I saw watching. I think a majority of the people I saw watching were slightly needy, and the marketing pitch was aimed at slightly needy people. One of my problems, and one of the ethical problems that I've faced about getting involved in coaching, is the snake oil element. I just do not like the idea that coaching and life coaching, personal development, should be marketed at people who are vulnerable. And the truth of the matter is, if you sit through something like that for 5 hours and you are already on the back foot in terms of your own resilience and your own positioning, then by the end of 5 hours, you're going to be quite ripe for plucking, shall we say. And let's not deny it. That was the aim of the exercise. So now you've got a tension, because the information shared and the advice offered was presented by well-meaning people who believed in what they were saying, and the advice was good, sound, it was ethically delivered, it was all of those things. But underneath all of that, almost like a cold undercurrent beneath the warm surface temperature of an ocean, there was, at the end of the day, a hard-headed drive to funnel and motivate people to part with cash. It's a numbers game, isn't it? If you're looking at tens of thousands of people joining, 100,000 people joining, and you get a 10% percentage of people who throw in $1,000 into the kitty, you're looking at walking away with a pretty good purse. And if you're taking $1 from so many people for the VIP, and that's going to feed people, that's great. But there are going to be wheels under the wheels and within the wheels about tax deductibility, profitability, depreciation, and all sorts of things going on underneath that. And I'm not knocking that. I wish I had the talent, the skill, and the financial acumen to do it myself. So all that glitters is not gold, is the summary here. I think A lot of the advice was absolutely fantastic from the speakers, and the inspirational element from Trent was pretty fantastic. But also the placing of Trent at that juncture was strategically really clever, because it took people an audience that was already vulnerable and expectant, and it softened them up. Coming, I think, directly after the first mention of the $1,000 boot camp, or the addition on the upsell. So the timing and the strategic placement of the messages was pretty spot on. These guys really know what they're doing. A final observation I will make is that this may be just my feeling, given that I'm kind of a bit of a manosphere type dude. I get the feeling that the presenters were loaded towards the expected demographic that the organization was aiming for, i.e., mostly female. I think that the presenters were chosen as mostly female presenters because I suspect that women spend more than men when it comes to events like this. Now, I'm not suggesting that women are more suggestible than men. I'm just indicating that women are responsible for a lot of spending. They probably outspend men in a lot of ways. And so it makes economic sense, does it not, to aim at that demographic and to have a gender imbalance, shall we say, in terms of speakers, which is going to address that likely market and demographic. Anyway, today was a day I'll never get back again. And I've got to say, I'm very pleased with myself for getting up early and sitting through 5 hours of the presentation. I was very impressed with the slickness of the presentation. Let's face it, these guys know what they're doing. I was also tempted to buy in, but the truth of the matter is I'm actually fielding different offers at the moment. And so if I have X amount of money to part with, I'm like the guy walking around the market stall. And the interesting thing was, a big part of the sales pitch was, don't hesitate, no, buy now, buy it, buy, Just like Dean Graziosi's claim, I'm not going to give you the hard sell. It's like, well, the last 5 hours was pretty much a hard sell by now, and I'm not knocking you for that. However, I think maybe 24 months ago, I would have been more likely to buy, but I've immersed myself in the coaching industry to such an extent now, and I've looked at so many different offers and different attitudes and mindsets that I'm really going into this kind of thing as more of a scholar than as a purchaser. I'm really interested in the synchronicities and the way that lines cross. I'm finally getting a good angle on what ethical marketing looks like. The main message that I came away with was that selling is service. And by that, I think they mean, well, I know they mean, is that if you can find something that somebody wants and you can present it to them in such a way that you're going to relieve them of a problem, a fixation, a perceived desire or want, then you are doing them a service. And if you don't, somebody else will, so it may as well be you. So all in all, it was a great lesson. I'm a big fan. I'm more than a fan of Tony Robbins. I must confess, he's been part of my life for the last 30, 40 years. I'm sure he speaks very highly of me too. My point being, he's part of my cultural landscape, shall we say. as I graduated towards getting into life coaching and away from education, I've used his resources and his mentalities and his takes on life in education for 30 years easily. And so I've always got time to hear where he's going. Again, I watch Tony Robbins almost as, how can I put it? They're just a disinterested party. I just want to see how he's doing, because his progress through the coaching industry is almost like a series of paradigmatic milestones and markers about how the industry itself has grown, developed, and improved. And I think in no mean measure, he has been instrumental in that process too. So it's always great to watch a master at work. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. I just thought I'd drop that today. I hope this is useful to you. I'm not poo-pooing Dean Graziosi or Tony Robbins at all. I guess I am saying that if you want to purchase and savor their products, go in there fresh, having done your research, and not at the end of a rather emotional 5-hour pummeling. As much as I enjoyed the pummeling. And here endeth my stream for the 19th of June 2026. Remember, whatever it is you dare to do a dream, you can begin it now.